So welcome to today's webinar, which is all about building resilience in sport, life and business. So we will, I know there's still people coming in, so we'll just start to get the logistics here. Let's find the chat box. So best for everybody if they can stay on mute during our webinar, but please do interact with us, ask your questions and respond, etc., using the chat box. So with the chat box, can you just confirm you can hear me and that you can see the title slide? And then I'll also know that you've seen the chat box. All good. Thank you, Nick. Thanks. Oh, look, brilliant, brilliant. Excellent. So, oh, you're all there. Fantastic. So let me do a quick introduction. I'm so pleased today. It's actually not me who's going to be talking for the next hour. I've delegated it to somebody far better. So Simon Cusden, our team, he's been with us almost a year, and he knows a thing or two about resilience. And we felt, given, I mean, we've just come out of COVID and now we've gone into all sorts of other shenanigans. I'm sure a number of you on the call are struggling with different business challenges created by economics, by shipping, by war, etc., with stock shortages, staff shortages, pricing going through the roof, etc. So resilience is a huge topic at the moment. All business leaders need to be demonstrating it in spades, and that impacts all aspects of our lives. So Simon, Mr. Resilience himself, is going to be sharing a bit about his story, his learnings, his insights, and his guidance, so that we can all learn from those experiences and take away some great tips in terms of building our own resilience. So I will be looking after the chat box, and Simon will be taking you through our webinar this morning. So Simon, let me hand over to you.
Cool, thanks, Helen. Just checking everyone can see me and hear me okay. Is that right, Helen? I'm on the screen, all good?
All good.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Yeah, this has been a really interesting experience putting this all together. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and then I'm going to try and extract a little bit of wisdom. I struggled to get my story into 2 hours, so trying to get it into 20 minutes and then was proved a really good challenge last night, just finishing the bits off with that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get cracking. So I'll start with a little bit about me. Yeah, Simon Cusden. I'm a former professional cricket player. I played cricket for Kent and Derbyshire quite a long time ago now, middle of the 2000s. I'm married to Jess, who's on the call today. She's, as you just see here, I've just become a twin dad. So my wife's just managed to get the twins down. She texts me and she's managed to be on the call. I'm not sure anything qualifies me more to talk about resilience than having twins at home with the challenges of sleep, but we're going really well. I'm the head of growth here at Action Coach Chilterns, and as Helen said, I've been here for a year. And a little bit, I lived in Australia for over 10 years after cricket, and I got back smack bang in the middle of COVID with Jess to start our life, and this is a flow on of the start of our life. So what's next? Let's go next here. So this is my why. I thought I'd just introduce you to the reason I come to work every day. You are my why, but here's a little bit about me. These are my twin sons, Jupiter and Phoenix. I've got my wife, and this is my why. And I wanted to bring this out early because it's very relevant to resilience. There's a good quote that the person who has a strong enough why can deal with it, can deal with any how. So I relentlessly remind myself of why I do things, and then the challenges that arise just seem to be a little bit easier. But what I would like to do, we're actually going to start with something. We use something called Menti here on our webinars. I want to know what your why is. Why are you on this webinar right now? This will help me connect you. Now, this is anonymous, so you can be brave with putting down why you're here. If you go, you're all going to need your phones or a laptop. If you go to www.menti.com on the browser on your phone, and then type in the code, then you are going to get connected into this webinar. And I would like you just to write in a few words, why are you here? Why do you come to work? Is it a sport? Is it life? Why are you here to learn about resilience? Why have you given up a lunch to come and listen to me speak about resilience? Again, it's anonymous, so be brave. A subject like resilience is it's a very heart-centered subject. So I would like to know why you're here. So as you go along, they'll appear on the screen and we'll be able to see everybody's and get a real feel for why we're on this webinar today. Great, so we've got learn an inspiring story, get better at what I do, continually improve, and bettering the world, that's great. Personal growth, it's what's keeping me alive, that's fantastic, thank you. Whoever put that on there. Better connect with others, fantastic. The core of every business is sales, and without resilience, sales is impossible. That's so true. Yeah, no, I never need to be more resilient than being rejected on the phone. Want to hear Simon's story? It comes across as a good bloke, thank you. Life, struggling at work, thank you very much. I've always felt very resilient, but recently I felt like a failure because I've struggled to stay resilient these last 2 years. Yeah, there's a lot of people that feel like that. So we just keep coming in. I just encourage everybody to log into Menti and write down that we've got 14 responses so far, and I know we've got 50 people on the webinar. So let's keep them coming in. Engagement is key. Keep them coming in. We've got a couple more to grow things, predominantly people. Fantastic. We're going to learn a lot about people today. Learn more resilient in life and business. Keep coming in, those that haven't put it in yet. 20 responses. Thank you. Struggling to find a meaningful job. That's brilliant. Yeah. Offered was only 18 months ago. Yeah, you'll definitely need some resilience there. I love learning. Resilience has got me through the toughest times. But sometimes I feel the resilience wavering a bit. We all need resilience. These are fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Kids are my why. I'm struggling a bit in life. I've taken a little career break at the moment. Thank you, everybody. Keep coming. Heard the good things about Helen and her team. So curious. We are amazing here. Juggling lots of balls and believe I'm very resilient. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that one. Great. So 30 more seconds just to let a few more come in. And as you're reading these, one of the things I wanted everybody on the webinar to do is to connect in with each other. Resilience is something that we've all had to bond over the subject of resilience in the last couple of years, and it's brought us closer together as human beings. I think it's dissolved the boundaries between work and home. And so when you're reading these, really feel into who might be on the other end and know that you're not alone. Resilience is something that we all need. And I'm hoping today I'm going to be able to share with you a little bit about my story that might offer you some hope. And then I'll try and a little bit of wisdom afterwards. My family and helping them in tough times. Brilliant. I'm seeing family on here. I'm seeing the love of learning. I'm seeing the struggle. Brilliant. I'm going to move on. So, I'll move on. What I want to do is I'm going to talk to you today about resilience and what qualifies me to talk about resilience. I am amazed at how many 21-year-old life coaches I can see in the world. And I come from professional sport, which was you didn't listen to someone teach you something if they didn't have the experience. I don't think resilience is something you can go to university and learn. I think finishing a degree might give you it. But what qualifies me to speak to you today about resilience? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit about my story. And in 20 minutes, it sort of looks like I was talking to Helen yesterday, calling it my resilience resume. And I thought that's a fantastic, we should all have our resilience resume, something that we can draw on when tough times. Here's where I've been resilient. My story, I live in the constant awareness of where I've been because it makes me feel more resilient because I know the challenges that I've overcome. Right, let's move on. My first love was cricket. As I said, I was a professional sports person. And you see here this photo, my wife, I think she hadn't seen this photo until last night. Innocent, happy chap, loved cricket. But behind that, there was a lot going on at home. And I think this photo was taken the same year that my dad left home to leave mum with 4 of us. And also, as I'll talk a little bit more about mum, mum had her own struggles, and this was not a good year, but you can see the smile, the cricket, and it was my first love. But my other love, I started drinking at the age of 11 years old, and I would not stop for 20 years. So this is a photo taken on the England under 11s, South England under 11s tour. I was 11 years old when I started drinking. As you can see, there's a guy called Graham Dilly in there, a great coach. And if you can see 2 to the left of me, that is Sir Alistair Cook as an 11-year-old. And when he was 11, he was the best player at the tournament. But I always, when I look back on these photos, I see myself as a cricketer, but I also know what was going on behind the scenes. And if you can imagine, if you know an 11-year-old beginning to drink, I was quite tall. I got served in shops, and it was 11, 12 that I started to drink alcohol. And I wouldn't stop for a really long time. Home was tough growing up. This is one of the very few photos that I have of my mum. My mum came out of childhood. There was a lot of mystery shrouded around mum. She came out of childhood with a lot of childhood abuse, hid it, we never knew. And I now know that at this point she was addicted to pain medication. And this is one of the first few, but home was tough. I also just found this, post being an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, by the way, in case anyone hadn't realized. I also like my prophetic t-shirt, which is quite funny because I like a lot of bottle. Turned out to be pretty true. Not anymore. So fast forward to my cricket journey. I became a professional cricketer in 2004. And I was the beginning of 2004, and I was 18 when I signed my first contract. It was an amazing time. I was fast tracked through. I was big, tall, strong. Alongside that, the drinking was continuing. I never really stopped. Didn't know it was a problem. Obviously, young lad in cricket cultures, I can drink. There's a few people in there you might recognize. And I became a professional cricketer. Dream come true in 2004. My sister Rhiannon, as you can see in the photo, the same week I signed my professional contract, my family received news about my sister Rhiannon. It was the same week. Rhiannon was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and within a week of my career starting, she started chemotherapy. It rocked my family. We're a tight, big family, and it was reflecting on that time it's very difficult even now to detangle the highs and the lows that then would continue for a really long time. And that was it. Cricket and cancer, cricket and Rhiannon. Here I am in my England under 19 uniform, my sister with her wig that I used to take the mickey out of her for. We had a great sense of humor. And bless her, she followed us around the country watching me play. And yeah, it was a tough time, and it's still raw now. Cricket got really serious. This guy next to me, that's Rob Key. He's just been made the managing director of England Cricket. He was my captain at Kent. You can see my incredibly serious, strained face as I'm bowling fast. I started to play at stadiums. I was one of the quickest bowlers in the country at age 18, 19. And it was on the field was fantastic during this 1 year of 2004. And I used cricket to escape from what was going on at home. The sicker my sister got, the more I threw myself into cricket, and actually the better I played for a while. But it didn't last very long, as I couldn't really manage what was going on at home. It wasn't really a time. Now we're incredibly supported as former players and players, but changing rooms were not a particularly easy place to be vulnerable. And certainly I didn't have the self-awareness to be able to be vulnerable at this age. I didn't really know I was avoiding things. I would play, I would party, and drinking was all part of that. So cricket got really serious, but also so did my home life around the same time. In 2005, tragedy struck the family as Rhiannon passed away at home. She was only 18 years old. And this was a 3-year cancer journey that went 3 years along with my cricket career. 2004, I peaked playing well. 2005, I started to deteriorate as my sister was deteriorating at home, I was deteriorating mentally. I couldn't land the ball at one stage, and I couldn't, reflecting, I didn't know how to ask for help. And it was 2005, cricket stopped being an escape for me because I was playing so poorly. I couldn't escape. And so obviously alcohol took really strong hold of me. And at that point, I didn't realize I had a genetic disease of addiction. And arguably a lot of people would have found solace in alcohol during that time. So Rhiannon died in 2005. My game just capitulated. I couldn't land the ball. I was barely present. I turned up to trainings. I was a professional cricketer. I turned up to trainings drunk. I drink in the morning, drink in the afternoon. I wasn't offered a new contract at Kent, and my childhood dream of Kent, I'm a Canterbury boy, was over. I signed for Derbyshire, but within 8 months, my 1-year deal was terminated as drinking was out of control. No one knew. I suffered in silence. And I put in here, other habits were taking control of me too. I have various debts of shares that I do around my addiction. And some of it just isn't appropriate to be able to share during this time right now. But addiction is all encompassing, and it was drinking, but it was other things too that were taking me. And by the end of 2007, I had lost my second contract in 2 years, and I really didn't know what to do. So in 2007, I traveled to Australia. And this is really where my story, I can't fit in too much. This is where my story, I don't have a great deal of photos over this period of time because it's so much chaos. What I took to Australia was I tried to begin a new life, but I didn't realize I was escaping from my pain. I didn't realize I was escaping from failures. I was a young man, and I went out there to play cricket. And as you can imagine, drinking took over. I tried to put myself together and have a job, but as anybody who has come into contact with the disease of addiction knows, that I'm sober today. I'm 6 years sober today. As a sober man, I live by a set of values. I'm a pretty decent person. But if you put a drink inside an addict, then it's a disease of immorality, and it's a disease that there's no boundaries. So I began stealing money to pay for my alcohol, and reflecting on that time, it was just pure chaos and being trapped in the cycle of addiction. I'm really happy to share my story of any of this point with anybody personally. We're having a book written at the moment which goes into a lot more detail, but it was a horrible time. It reached the tipping point in 2016. I got sober for a little while in 2014, and actually the man who helped me get sober, Brian, I believe, is on this call. He's in Australia. And Brian was the first person who really helped me get sober for about 9 months, but I couldn't keep it together. So in 2016, I was unable to get sober, and I was causing so much destruction around me that I tried to take my own life. I moved down in a drunk state. I moved to a nature reserve and lived in a tent while I was a director of cricket of a pretty big school, like a lot of high functioning alcoholics. I was able to hold down a fairly decent job and keep my drinking a secret. I was beside myself and drunk one day. I tied a rock to my foot and jumped in the river. And the rock was heavy enough that I thought that it would end my suffering. But I fought to the top and I failed. And thankfully, 2016, for the first time properly to my cricket, to the organisation, I called the PCA. And I opened up about my struggles. And this really is where the beginning of recovery, almost immediately. The PCA, I've got some people from the PCA on this webinar today. I was flown from Bali to Rehab. As you can see here, I'm not well. This is 4 months after my suicide attempt. I look at that now, and I personally can see that I wasn't well mentally, physically or emotionally or spiritually. But I was flown to Rehab, and I had a 3-month stay in Rehab paid for by the Professional Cricketers Trust, who saved my life. And that was when my recovery began. In rehab, I learned about what we're going to start learning about now. I learned about myself. I learned about my condition, addiction. I processed the trauma of my childhood, failures around cricket, you know, the death of Rhiannon, my mum's addictions, and with the help of other addicts who have been where I've been in recovery, I began to rebuild myself. This photo was taken in the first day of me in rehab, and you know, I kind of almost get a ghostly feel. I feel like I wasn't really alive at that point, but thanks to my rehab, 3 months, toughest thing I've ever done, 3 months rehab, I was able to start to rebuild myself. Next. So since 2016, I have literally thrown myself into everything that I can to learn about myself. In the beginning, I was so afraid of drinking again that I was fueled by fear. And then after a while, I started to feel better. And I have had, thanks to the PCA, who have funded so much of my counseling, I've been to group therapy, meditation, mindfulness, psychedelic therapies, which sooner or later, everybody will start to hear more about. It will become legalized. And in a controlled setting, it's been incredibly healing for me. Archetypes, Brian, who's on the call today, is an archetypes consultant, learning about my mind. I found Tibetan Buddhist practices. I fasted. I've been on retreats. I found solitude and journaling. And this is just to name a few. In an attempt to understand myself, in the beginning, I didn't want to drink again. But after a while, you just start to unveil who you are. And I would encourage anybody to go and look into any of those, even if you're the happiest person, channel that happiness into learning more about yourself. So fast forward to today. Again, I've had to finish this pretty quickly so I can get to the next bit. I'm married, I'm sober, I'm 6 years sober. I feel pretty happy one day at a time. You know, life does what life does. I still definitely need to be resilient. The challenges come, but I feel like I have strong habits. I have a long-term meditation practice. It's the one thing that I've carried forward from all the things that I've learned. I pretty relentlessly meditate. Again, I would encourage everybody to form a 5-minute meditation practice. And I feel like I have a reasonable level of self-understanding and awareness, and I'm on a mission to help others. And my mission to help others in my 12-step program, the 12th step of the 12-step program is that having had an awakening of some kind, that we help others to keep our own long-term sobriety. So my mission to help others is to keep my sobriety, which serves my family, and serves others. So that's a really short, condensed. A couple of other things to mention. You know, my 1 year out of rehab, I didn't really have a relationship with my mum, but my mum died, and it was only when I went into rehab and I saw people coming off of heroin that I realised that I'd seen my mum 2 years previously. She looked exactly the same, and she passed away less than a year out of rehab. That was a challenge, but I never really felt like I was going to relapse. Yeah, so I feel like I've been given a little bit of wisdom for my time and my story. There's a great quote that I like: "Wisdom is crystallized pain." And the reason I like that is I think that a lot of people, we're drowning in knowledge, but we're starving for wisdom. And I think if we understand what wisdom means, then things like resilience will flow on from that. By the way, I'm going to get a recording to everybody, so don't overwhelm yourself trying to take notes from this. My theory is you're not going to develop a lifelong habit of resilience and wisdom from watching one webinar. I'll get this to you. You can screenshot, you can pause it. I'm also free for conversations all the time. Get hold of me on LinkedIn or give me a call and we can talk about it. Knowledge, wisdom is knowledge that comes to us through direct experience. It's rarely through comfort, and it's always out of our control. When we know that, then we start to open ourselves up in tough times that we may get some wisdom later on down the track. And now when tough times come, my wife and I had some tough times trying to conceive our children. You know, it took a long time to conceive. And the whole time you kind of feel like this is a direct experience that's not comfortable. It's out of my control, but I'm going to get some wisdom later on. And for me, there's nothing more valuable than wisdom. Wisdom is the deep learning that we get from integrated failure. And the reason I wanted to bring failure in right now is because we have to fail. We have to fail and fail again so that we can learn and grow. So, back onto your Mentimeter. Thank you for listening. Back onto the Mentimeter. I want to know what your definition is for resilience. So I want you to pretend you're Google. Someone's just typed it into you. What is the definition for resilience? There's no right or wrong answer. It's going to mean something different for everybody. But I'd love to see what everybody thinks. And let's try and get the engagement up into the 40s. Let's get everybody engaging. The more you put into this, the more you're going to get out. So you get knocked down, but you bounce back. Brilliant. Keep going when things get tough. Bounce back after a setback. Bounce back. Brilliant. Setbacks, difficult times, bounce back, bounce forwards. Oh, I love that. Bounce forwards. Fantastic. Oh, nice quote from Winston Churchill. I've got a couple of Winston Churchill quotes about you're going through hell, keep going. You know that failure is not forever. Very true. Feeling free to fail again without it breaking you. Everybody take a read of other people's too. Our understanding of what these words mean is the beginning of our knowledge of something like resilience. We can't expect to be resilient if we don't understand what it means. I don't know about you, I didn't get taught what resilience meant at school. I didn't do definitions of resilience. I get knocked down, I get back up again, getting up when you're down. So there's a bit of a theme coming through here. Knowing that temporary setbacks needn't be permanent. Good. So I'm going to go, I'm pushed for time, so I'm just going to go for another 30 seconds. Embracing your vulnerability. That's amazing. Perfect. You should come and do a webinar on that. Finding your inner strength. Keep going. God, I tell you what, you just read this board, right? And during tough times, just come in and read this board. I feel like I'm getting more resilient already. The ability to take the hits that life throws at you and bounce back. Brilliant. Carrying out actions that will help, even if the feelings tell you won't. Fantastic. Right. I'm sorry if anybody's writing. I need to move on. A little bit to get through. So the dictionary definition, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, and the ability for an object to spring back into shape. I think we just about covered it there. So the next part I want to talk about, sorry, I just need to move this across a little bit. Why do we need to master resilience in sport, business, and life? Why do we need to, and maybe it's obvious right now, but 2 years ago before COVID, we didn't realize how much we're going to need it. My thought is that whether you're in sport, business, or life, the odds are stacked against you. In business, 96% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Something similar fail in the next 5 years of those remaining 4%. As you can see through the mental health pandemic, life is challenging. It's tough. Relationships are tough. Money problems are tough. Trying to provide is tough. The storm will come. You will be challenged and you will fail a lot. And all there is to do is know that or ignore that. Knowing that, I think, is 90% of being resilient. It's not walking out the door every day and thinking that the day is going to own you, but it is knowing that life is challenging. Business is challenging. Sport is challenging. If you played cricket like I do, Sachin Tendulkar, I remember him giving a talk, by his own standards, he failed 80% of the time, and that was the best batsman of that era. So the best batsman of the era was succeeding 20% of the time. We're in the business of failure. Life is failure. You're going to fail, and you'll fail a lot, and that's not a negative. The main reason that failure is not a negative is the only way to learn is to fail. And if we do not become good failers, we cannot become good learners. So I want you to have a moment with yourself. Are you a good failure? Do you embrace failure? Do you understand yourself through failure? The reason that resilience is important here is resilience secures our longevity and it stops us quitting. Because the only way to truly fail is to quit. Because if we quit, we can't learn. And if we can't learn, we can't outgrow our current situation. The only thing that I've done is learn. I read a quote which was, your life will be, the only thing that makes your life different from 5 years from now is the books you read and the people you meet. We learn from each other, and we learn from what we read, and we learn from webinars. Failure is feedback that we need to reflect, adjust, and realign. And we're going to have to cultivate resilience and ultimately embrace this failure. And those without resilience, they seek comfort and safe ground. So when the storm comes, they're unprepared. I'm going to keep flicking through. Apologies if that's a bit quick. Without resilience, we can't fail in a healthy enough way, and we can't transcend our so again, we have to cultivate a resilient attitude for everything we do. I've tried to really quickly bring in some principles from, there's a lot of principles that I could take out of my journey. I tried to pick 5 and add some practices to them so that you all would have some new awareness and some practices, some things to go away and do that will help you cultivate resilience. First principle is honesty. It was only when I was able to be honest with myself that I could be honest with someone else. And I had to learn what honesty was and cultivate it in my daily life. Honesty began for me with Brian, who's on the call. It was the first time I said to someone, I think I have a drinking problem. It might be like this. I think my business is failing. I'm not feeling good. I feel sad. It could be being vulnerable. Honesty could be looking at your track results in sport and not sugarcoating them and realizing that something has to change. We have to become honest. We also need to know with honesty that delusion is cunning. The human mind is inherently delusional. The more you learn about the reptilian part of the brain, the amygdala, the more you realize we literally lie to ourselves all the time. Our brains are wired to do that. And the reason is it's a survival mechanism in the oldest part of the brain that stops us. It leads us towards comfort. We actively avoid discomfort, and we tell ourselves stories that mean that we don't go towards discomfort. So the mind is delusional, and this is where meditation comes in, having a practice where you're able to watch. Like, the mind is insane, and it should never be believed. Comfort equals safety, which equals survival. Anytime we're aiming at comfort, it could be argued that we're just aiming at survival, and we aren't here to merely survive. We're here to thrive, and we're here to grow. So honesty practice, again, I'm going to send this over. There's something for you to take away. I'm a big believer in journaling and thinking and sitting with a coffee and thinking about myself and life. What part of your life, business or sport brings you the most discomfort to think about? Sit without distraction, make notes, and remember, the more uncomfortable you are, the better. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Create a safe space for yourself. If you can do this weekly and have a check-in with yourself, then your resilience is going to grow, because you are going to become aware of a previously unaware area of your life. And just by becoming aware in areas that you weren't aware, it's like turning on a light. And actually, that's all it needs, a little bit of awareness. I'm going to move on, and I'll send the recording over. Second principle, self-awareness. You may have heard Socrates say, know thyself, and all of this could be argued that we're here to get to know ourselves more. Self-awareness only comes through questioning. We must ask ourselves new, direct, and challenging questions to gain new levels of self-awareness. The word that I want to bring attention to in here was new questions. Most of us are asking ourselves a set of questions on a loop all day long about our business, about our game, our sport. We have to be able to interrupt the old questions, because they're getting us the old results, and ask new questions. And they have to be challenging. Most new questions are challenging by nature, because they're new, fresh, unknown. And I'm going to give you a few questions here. Who do I become when things do not go my way for an extended period of time? Some of you who are married, you would know what that's like. When things don't go my way, then I've learned an extraordinary amount about myself through having a family, taking responsibility, because things don't go my way all the time. And I'm impatient. You know, I can be a little bit controlling sometimes. And I need to know that about myself by asking this question. Now, if I know this by asking this question, I don't need to find it out in my relationships, at work or at home. Next question: who do I become when I'm under pressure? What do I embody when I'm under pressure? I'll leave that one with you. And then the last one is, how do I avoid uncomfortable situations so that I do not have to see this part of myself? So these questions are deep questions for a reason. They're meant to unveil and uncover dimensions within us that will help us grow by looking at parts of ourselves that are a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know many people who are fantastic under pressure, so we're not alone. But most of us avoid uncomfortable situations so that we do not have to see the angry, impatient, controlling parts of ourselves. But actually, if we become aware of that, then we can grow. When the challenge comes, we've done the work, we understand ourselves, the storm comes, and we're able to remain calm and make good decisions for our family, for our businesses, and for ourselves, and for our sport. When you are under pressure, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So this webinar, I really wanted to give you a lot to go away and do, a lot to go away and meditate on or make notes on. You know, I've come here through thousands of hours of asking questions relentlessly of myself, sometimes of others, of books, of, you know, I've consumed YouTube videos, I Google things. When you're under pressure, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? You don't have to answer it now, but these are the questions that we all should know this. And certainly as leaders in a team, in a business, a lot of us think our business needs to be more resilient. And towards the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to run a business resilience webinar where we're going to talk about marketing channels, sales, team. But what I wanted to get down to today was, if you're not resilient, your business won't be resilient. If you're not aware, then your leadership will suffer. You can't expect to have a resilient team if you're not resilient. You can't expect to have a directed and confident team if you're not confident in who you are when the storm comes. And the storm will come. The sales will dip. You will fail in the sport. Someone might get sick at home. In fact, people do get sick. Someone will die eventually. We all die. And if we don't know who we are and we don't know ourselves under pressure, then we get blindsided by these situations. And a lot of us, including myself, focus on the business as a way of, as the part of that delusion of the mind to stop us unveiling who we are. And actually, if we unveil that part of ourselves, the business just changes, the team changes, the sales come. Because everything that is outside of us is a reflection of what is within. And that's something I've come to fundamentally know is true. So self-awareness practice, this is a challenge for some of you. Ask someone who knows you better than anyone else to give you their honest opinion on how you handle pressure. Make them feel safe to tell you the truth. Relax your body, okay? And get someone to tell you the truth. Get two people if you can. How do you handle pressure according to everybody else? Who do you become? If you're a leader of a team at a business, go get your line manager. Get someone in the team to come and tell you who you are as a boss. How do you handle pressure when the sales aren't coming in? Or when there's a busy service in hospitality? How do you handle pressure in your marriage? On the sports field? Pick someone whose opinion will make you feel slightly uncomfortable. Now, really important with this practice, for every weakness that you have under pressure, you need to balance it out with a strength. Okay, and the reason is because this practice is you're going to put plans in place where you're going to leverage your strengths under pressure and you're going to improve on your weaknesses. Pretty basic, simple stuff. Again, this practice, if you do this and you make this a part of your friendship, the dynamics in a friendship. I've got a couple of friends, certainly my wife, we try and be as honest as we can with each other. Principle 3, courage. A little teaching, a few things I've learned on courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Most people think to be courageous is to be fearless, and it's very different. Okay, fearlessness is not courage. Okay, we all remember what we were like when we were 13, you know, my brother-in-law jumping off of bridges into rivers. You know, I just chuck myself here and there. That's fearlessness. It's not courage. And we need courage, not fearlessness. And the reason is because courage is being afraid. It's being aware of being afraid. It's accepting that you are afraid, and then you move forwards anyway with an open heart. The word courage, core, is French word for heart. So it's being afraid. We feel fear in our heart. So it's moving forwards, being courageous with an open heart. And this is what I like. You know, where there's fear, there's an opportunity to be courageous. There's a lot of developments now in psychotherapy that people with high levels of anxiety, you never remove the levels of anxiety. The only cure is to become more courageous. You don't remove anxiety, you practice courage. Courage practice requires honesty, requires self-awareness. Number 2, when does fear paralyze you? Fear makes us do 3 things. It makes us fight, run away, or freeze. When do you do these? What are you currently avoiding taking action on? When have you previously courageously overcome a fear? Take this practice every day for 7 days, 20 minutes, and write about this. Again, just becoming aware is often enough to make a massive difference. 4th principle is discipline. Now, who here struggles with discipline? I can't see anyone, but I know everybody struggles with discipline. And I think it's because we don't understand what it means. Discipline is not doing things that you hate to do. Because who wants to do that? There's no amount of courage, things you hate to do. That's not discipline. At work or at home or on the sports field. Discipline means to become a disciple of your desired outcome. So in this instance, you're going to become a disciple of resilience. Let's take a look at that for a second. So if you want to have discipline in, let's take, well, for me, you know, want to lose a little bit of weight, I become a disciple of weight loss, which means I follow what it means to lose weight. And this is how we put it into practice. You decide what you want to master. You find someone who's already mastered it, and then you become their disciple of how. You don't become a disciple of them as a person, you become a disciple of the method that mastered it. And this is a little hack with discipline. It makes it kind of inspiring. Find someone who's mastered what you want to master. You want to be more vulnerable, find someone that you know is vulnerable and find out how they became vulnerable. How do they operate? What are their daily practices? How do they see the world? What's their worldview? And then become a disciple of that. Study them and then do what they do relentlessly as a true disciple. If you can do this consistently, then that's for me, that's what discipline means. Discipline is not me doing something I hate to do. What are we going for time? Great. Last one, teamwork. You know, I wouldn't be here without the PCA. I wouldn't be on this webinar without my team here, without Guy and Helen. I wouldn't be here without my wife. I wouldn't be here. I have a team around me, and I didn't before. And I can track my recovery to the moment I gained a team. My team became counselors and addicts in recovery, and then it became family members and friends and a wife, and now it's at work. I need a team around me. We're not made to be separate. We're made to work together. Asking for help was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but when I did, everything became possible. So that thing that you're struggling with right now, I can almost guarantee you, if you find the right person to help you, you can move through it. And actually, you're probably suffering because you've cut yourself off from somebody. That was certainly the case for me. Here's something about teamwork. People love to help. And when we ask for help, we give the lives of people, organizations, and groups purpose when we empower them to help us. Read that again, because I think in business, this is a really important thing. You know, especially in local business, we're surrounded by other people in business, and we all do different things that can help each other. And the old sense of community is going now. Maybe it's coming back, thanks to COVID. We give the lives of people, organizations, and groups purpose when we empower them to help us. But asking for help requires humility and often courage. The practice: each day for 1 week, ask someone to help you with something small or large. And each day for 1 week, offer to help someone with something small or large. And this is going to require you to take action on this one. And the more uncomfortable you feel, obviously, with everything, the better. Right, back on the Menti. I want us to order the principles for developing resilience in order for the most to least important for you. This is an exercise for you to prioritize and understand which one you need to focus on in order. Should start to come up with some results. Cool. Mine's discipline, by the way. Self-awareness and discipline. Teamwork, 5th. Keep them coming. Honesty, fantastic. What I like here is they're all pretty even. Great. Interesting that teamwork's 5th. For me, that says that as human beings, we think we can do things alone. It's interesting that discipline is 1st and teamwork is 5th. But I would argue that to become a disciple of something, you're going to need to work together with someone. Self-awareness, top, fantastic. Okay, 30 more seconds or 20 more seconds. Great, move on. Someone's drawing on the screen. Back onto Menti. The principle that I'm going to master in the next 30 days is, and by mastery, that means research, understand, study, become a disciple, do the practices, rewatch the webinar, speak to someone, work in a team, get courageous, get brave, get reflective, get aware. The principle that I'm going to master in the next 30 days is, and this is a commitment. It's a commitment you're going to make to yourself for the next 30 days after this webinar. You're going to put plans in place. Give me a call if you need some help. In your journey to becoming more resilient, you are going to work on for 30 days. Practice, brilliant. Review the webinar in detail, brilliant. Be honest. Build a team, brilliant. Courage, discipline. Meditate, fantastic. Be open to ask for help, and to ask for help. It's really good to see. That makes me think that some people really need to ask for help. Trust, growth. Offer, there we go. We need a name next to this offer to help. Offer to help, brilliant. Offer help and be less selfish. Make tough decisions. So this is 30 days every single day. Okay, thank you for listening. So one of the things I wanted to say was the resilience webinar that I've just done there is for me, if you have a team, then you need to understand people. So we've come at this from a people perspective, a psychology perspective. But if you would like for us to send you some information and be invited to the next webinar or a webinar that Helen will do, on business specific resilience, then could you type into the chat bar resilience, and we'll have this in the transcript, and we'll get back to you with that. So if you type resilience in there for business specific resilience, where you can go into sales, marketing, you know, the numbers. For me, I wanted this to be the core of business resilience is people. And then Helen can bring in more intricate layers around aspects of business. Brilliant. I can see lots of people writing it in there. That's fantastic. Great. Great. So a couple of final things for me. Let's get this one across. Right, we have an upcoming business event. As I've said, I now support the PCA. They put me through Rehab. They're an amazing, the Professional Cricketers Trust is the charity. We have a fantastic event coming up at Wormsley Cricket Ground, arguably one of the most beautiful cricket grounds in the world. I don't know if anybody knows it. It's on, it's just outside of Stokenchurch. And there is a thing called the Festival of Cricket. I went last year, absolutely amazing day, corporate event for businesses. There's tables available. You're going to get to dine with celeb cricketers, watch a T20 game. There's legends in the game. Look, I've put some names in here. I think Darren Goff, Mark Rampaguchi was there last year. Ramps was there last year. This is a great chance to bring clients, bring your team for a corporate day at the cricket. And we have some great deals with this. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about this event, there are also some ground tickets available. Then just type into the chat box PCA, and then I'll know to just get in touch with you with some information around tables. It's as you can see down here, there's a lovely lunch. Matt Hoggard's on the grill this year. We've got Hoggy's Grill. I can see Alistair Kane's here. It's going to be a great day. Alistair's actually arranging the day, and he's part of the team that's building this. It is going to be an amazing day. We're partnering with the PCA. We want to get as many business owners to get some tables together, and we'll go and have a great day. I obviously will be drinking soda water, but for those of you that don't have the issue I have, then you can go large. Great. So I can see a few people have written PCA into the chat box. Well done. Good to see you there. The other thing we're offering too is at the end of our webinar, for our webinar attendees, we do offer up to 3 hours of free coaching with our managing director, Helen. This webinar has not been showcasing Helen too much. She's amazing, lots of experience, great values, you know, and for me, I just think business owners should just take that chance and have a free coaching session. The work that Helen does with business owners absolutely improves the resilience of practices and systems within the business. So if you'd like us to get in touch with that one, just type in coaching into the chat box, or direct message me, send me an email if you'd like us to take advantage of that, and then I can hook that up. Brilliant. Keep writing that in there. That's fantastic. Likewise, follow Helen on LinkedIn too. So we have about 5 minutes. I'd love to have any questions that will go in the chat box. I've got a couple of minutes. I've managed to stick to time. If anybody has any questions around anything at all, I'd be more than happy to answer. Or if any questions for Helen too, around business resilience, if there's anything in particular, then shoot.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Simon. When you get to read the comments afterwards, you'll see how much this session has meant to so many people on this call. So thank you for sharing your story. I knew quite a lot of it, but not all of it. And I know that was still the abridged version. Really inspiring. I think some great practices there. Honesty, self-awareness, courage, discipline, teamwork, absolutely key. And yeah, we are here to help. So absolutely, for those of you who need the courage to ask for help, we are here absolutely to help businesses of all sizes and shapes. So thank you, Simon. Anybody who's got any questions, then you know, pop them in the chat box. But more importantly, just you know, give us a call afterwards. Great. Oh, we have got a question here.
Yeah, can I answer them, Helen? Is that okay?
Yeah, can you see them?
Yeah, I'm going to try and do it really quickly. Mohit, how do you overcome drinking issue? there's no simple answer, but the best thing I can say is Alcoholics Anonymous. Before I went to AA, I thought it would be a load of drunks in there with bottles with, you know, in paper bags, but AA is full of men and women who have been sober for a really long time. And if anybody wants to get sober, I tend to send them to AA. But most, without going into too much detail, I'd say AA and YouTube's your best friend. What else?
And then John's got high achievers, sport and business. Do they frequently have unresolved issues?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. You know, for me, it's chasing. I don't know if we are wired as human beings to have these highs that sport give us. For me, I was chasing the high of taking a wicket because it was the furthest thing away from what was actually happening. So I think high achievers have to achieve a sense of balance, emotional balance while playing. Otherwise it can become very addictive, which is to win, score the goal, take the wicket, take the catch. That's flooding the system with dopamine, and the system is not meant to be flooded with dopamine. And if you flood your system with dopamine enough, eventually you're going to look at other things to give you the dopamine hit. And I think in a nutshell, that's why sports people, but it's really complex.
Great. Next question from Josh. How did you separate the success you had with cricket from the lows you experienced with alcohol?
That's a really deep question, Josh. Josh, I've got to be honest, I never really saw myself as successful with cricket. I saw the whole thing as a failure. So I don't know if I can answer that question because I never saw myself as a success. I saw the whole thing as a failure, including alcohol. And maybe that's helped me in the long run, if that makes sense. I never saw myself as a success. I didn't enjoy it when I was playing.
And so two more here. Charlie says, did you feel you lost your identity when cricket ended for you? I certainly did, and it was a great lesson to learn.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm really glad you're on here as well, because it's good to see former players in these conversations. Yeah, I did. I don't think cricket is an identity. I don't think it's a genuine identity. I think that we have to, same with business. A lawyer is not an identity. A business coach is not an identity. They're not the deepest identities that we have. And when we over-identify with these labels, which is a cricketer or a sports person or a lawyer or a business coach, no, Helen is a business coach, but she's a mother and she's a wife and she's a daughter and she's a friend. And I think that the identities that we get so attached to because we get so much attention for them, they're surface identities. And I think we have to peel back the layers after sport. You know, we're into son, friends, and then ultimately through meditation to go even deeper than that. And the reason it's hard is because the identity of being a sports person floods your system with dopamine. So it's really, really addictive, but it's not real.
Great. Charlie's agreeing. Alistair, interesting question here. How do you separate playing in a team to teamwork? What are the key differences?
Thanks, Al. I'll come around with Jess and the twins and we can talk about that one. I don't know. Can I have 3 months to think about that one? And I'll get back to you. Off the top of my head, I think it depends on what game you're playing. So if you're playing cricket, it depends on what game you're playing. Some games are not. If you're playing cricket, sometimes it's a team game, sometimes it isn't. So I think it depends what field you're playing on and what game you play as to whether you're playing in a team or if it's teamwork. For me, I'm playing the game now of good health. And so I still don't necessarily see myself as playing in a team more than I am surrounded by good teamwork. But I guess I'm playing in a team when I have a collective goal towards a single goal. That would be my very quick, not particularly thoughtful answer. Sorry. It's deep.
I like it, Alistair. Yes, played as a very negative team, spirit-wise, but very successful results-wise. Yes, I think you can be in a team that isn't actually operating with great teamwork.
Yeah, Helen would be a great person to answer that question because she's the team guru.
It's certainly in a business sense. That's certainly visible in places.